All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the New Breed Show, the world's best music show, talking about everything brutal, new, death, hard slam, grind, thrash, core metal. I am one half of your hosting duo, Jay Horsecow. With me, I have my partner in crime, the notorious TIM, Tim Anderson Jr. Tim, how goes it?
Pretty good, pretty good.
All right. And our guest of honor for this week's episode, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Will Putney. Will, thank you for joining us.
What's up, guys? Thank you for having me.
So, Will, our audience runs the gamut from young guys to old heads and everything in between. So we want to give you a second to introduce yourself and what you do and some of your projects. And then we can just leap off from there if that sounds good.
Sure. Sounds good. My name's Will Putney. I'm a record producer at Graphic Nature Audio. I've recorded for about 15 years now. Worked with a bunch of bands all over the metal, hardcore spectrum. Every Time I Die, Knock Loose, Body Count, Vein, etc., etc. I also play in the bands Fit for an Autopsy and End, and I live in New Jersey. And yeah, that's it. I'm somewhere in between a young guy and an old head, so I'm working more towards the old head category for sure. So.
Unfortunately, I guess we all approach old head as time goes on. So
yeah, that's how it goes.
Let me ask you this, Will. You're obviously a talented guitarist, right? Like you said, you play in Fit for an Autopsy, you play an End. Were you a guitarist first who got into producing, or were you a producer, mixer, engineer guy who got into the art of playing guitar?
Well, I don't know if I would say I'm a very talented guitarist. I'm a fine guitarist enough to get it done. I think I've worked with enough very talented guitarists to realize that by now, but I am a guitar player. I was a guitar player first, and I think, as a kid I was drawn to it. I picked it up at an earlier age and started bands, was playing in local bands for years, and the guitar was my main sort of interest and passion in music for a long time before I even thought about recording. I just was never really exposed to a real recording studio or record producers or like this side of the world until a little later in life. So that kind of came later on. Once I started working with the record producer machine, I learned a lot about like, oh, this is like what this really is. This is what a record producer is. This is how records get made. And I kind of fell in love with it and just sort of pursued that. And that's kind of where that's led me to today, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like, you're so busy, like you don't even tour with Fit for an Autopsy. Like it's gotta be like a humbling feeling, man, especially coming from the hardcore scene in Jersey. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I never even thought I could do music for a living. More so like where I am now, where I can even kind of do it on my own terms. It's crazy. Like I'm constantly grateful that people are interested in stuff that I do, and it's mega humbling. Like I mean, if you came up in the hardcore scene in New Jersey and was a part of that community and saw like what that was never what you were going to do for a living for the rest of your life, and somehow I've been able to kind of figure it out where I still feel like very grounded in that world and all the stuff I'm still passionate about and interested in, I get to do as like my calling here, so it's definitely something I don't take for granted. Very, very appreciative of it.
Oh yeah. It's funny you bring up the one thing, like, I think a lot of kids in hardcore, like especially young kids, are like, oh, I'm gonna live off this, and then they get that feeling, or they go on one tour and they're like, fuck, I'm broke.
Yeah, I mean, touring's hard off the bat. Even if you're a successful band, touring's hard financially. I mean, we're like just turning a corner, where it's like, cool, my band can pay their bills when they go on tour, and it's like now become like, cool, this could be your job, but it took a decade to even get to that spot, and it's been I think the reality of like what it costs to travel and feed a whole group of guys in a crew, and what merch costs, and it's just like it's bill after bill, and it is crazy. You have to really, really want to do it to break through those walls, like 2-3 years of touring can break a lot of people. It basically broke me. Like I was very into touring with Fit for an Autopsy when the band started. It was so fun. It was really hard to do financially, but it was like, I really enjoyed it. And then, you know, the opportunity to pursue music in another avenue, being a record producer, you know, I kind of hit this fork in the road where I was like, honestly, this is like more stable. I still get to do music. Like I had this like I had to kind of think it through, and I realized like, well, maybe I'm built to be at home too, you know? So whenever I get kind of like bummed that I'm not playing the awesome festival or this or that, I'm always like, well, you know, you made this choice. You didn't necessarily earn, you know, the ability to get on that stage and have this great moment like some of the other guys have, you know? So it's something I'm aware of. Like I'm like half a quitter, you know, so I get it. It's that stuff is hard, man. And I always respect the guys who have done it for, you know, their whole lives. Some of the classic metal bands who have been touring for 30 years and stuff. It's crazy to do for that long. And for it to be, you know, that big a part of your life, and to go through all those sacrifices. Like if you haven't done it, people really don't understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm amazed at to your point, Will, you know, you said it takes a good decade of putting in the work to actually get to a point where you can become self-sufficient. And that belies not just the mental toughness, but also you need to have some talent, right? I mean, you can't be like some half-assed sort of crappy band grinding it out for a decade. I mean, I'm sure if we really wanted to get dark, we could probably grab a couple bands where they just put out the same album over and over again. But I'm always amazed at not only the talent required to generate that career of longevity, but also the mental toughness, like you said, to get in the damn van. And like, you know, you said you missed out on these great experiences at some of these live shows, but you also didn't have to sleep on some random person's floor and eat cold pasta.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, and the other thing is too, 10 years ago, we were all completely different people. You know, so you grow up in a lifestyle that, you know, you change as a person. You know, I'm sure anyone who's listening, if you rewind your life 10 years, the decisions and the responsibilities you have are so different. You know, there's guys in my band that have kids now. Like there's the people have houses. Like there's like real world responsibilities that like just never existed when you were a kid and you started with a band. So it's like the ability to stay adaptive and still be committed enough to like do the good shows, grow the band. Like you have to be all in creatively at the same time and be engaged. Like, yeah, it's not as easy as it looks.
So is everybody in Fit for an Autopsy from Jersey? Because I mean, I know Pat is, right?
We started as a Jersey-based band, basically, with a singer who was from up north a little bit. He's from New Hampshire. And then over time, we've had a member switch or two, and then guys have moved. So now we're all spread out. I'm actually the only guy who lives in New Jersey now.
Okay.
You know, we got Pat's in Atlanta. My singer's in North Carolina. My drummer technically lives in Puerto Rico now. He moved back at the beginning of the pandemic. Bass player's in Boston. Other guitarists in Long Island. So we're like close enough sometimes, but yeah, there's no like, hey, let's have band practice on Saturday anymore. Like that's not that's not the reality anymore. But you know, we stay organized and make it work. You know, it's just it's another travel bill. Just add that to the pile of tour expenses.
Right. Yeah, I'm totally forgetting your singer's name at the moment, but dude, I've been saying for years, man, he might have the best vocals in the extreme metal scene, like especially live, man. Like he sounds exactly like he does on the record. It's fucking impressive, man.
Yeah, I mean, his name's Joe. He's awesome. He came into the band at a time where we had lost a singer that was pretty well respected, and we were very worried about continuing the band and if it was going to work. And we were very lucky to find him, because I think it put the band on a course to grow to what we are now. And I don't know if we would have done that with another singer, you know. So it has been very awesome doing it with Joe.
Yeah, I
his
remember
breath
when
control is something else. How he
amazing.
controls his breathing so he can hold some of those notes, and you know, he never sounds like he's gasping.
Yeah, he's got some tricks. Even I've recorded a lot of singers, and I always pick up a little thing or two. Oh, this guy does that. That's cool, And Joe's every record I do, he's got something new where I'm like, oh, I didn't know you could do that, or like, oh, that's how that works. Yeah, this one he's like, he's trying to hit it like this kind of lower scream, and he's like, oh, I'm just gonna turn my head sideways and it'll work. And I'm like, oh, okay, dumbass, like sure. And then he did it and it worked, and I was like, what just happened? And he's like, oh yeah, if you turn like this and it stretches this muscle and your throat tightens here so I can hit this pitch a little lower. I'm just like, okay, that was pretty advanced. Not bad.
That's great. Before I forget, I don't want to change, like go way off subject, but I do want to ask you about that Rain City Recorders set that you did for them, like the mix and stuff. That live, that sounds fucking amazing, dude. Seriously. Like when I heard that, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was really cool. They went to that Rain City in Vancouver. It was a really cool studio too. And it was like the perfect balance of like, hey, we got the studio environment. They also packed in like 150 kids. So it was like, it tightened up things like just the right amount of way. It was like, it actually was just like a really good intimate show that happened to be captured with like really good studio equipment too. So it was like fun to put together, because I was like, ooh, I get live energy, like real live energy in like a actual studio recording. It's kind of hard to pull that off. You either do a live recording at a show, which creates like all these problems, or you make a record, which is, doesn't have that environment or energy at all, but you have all the gear. And this was like, wow, we have both things at once. There's not too many places that could do it like that. So it was cool. And I think they did a great job getting me audio. It was really fun to mix and put together. And yeah, we loved the way that came out.
Yeah, it makes sense because the Misery Signal set from there sounds absolutely incredible as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like there's a Mystics one, there's a Comeback Hit one that's awesome. There's a Baptist one that's crazy because it's like
super, that one is great. Yeah,
it's like super drum forward, and that guy rips, and that was the set when I saw it. I was like, ooh, I want to do Rain City because this is cool, But yeah, I wish they would do more, because every they're like batting 1,000 on those. Everyone I've heard and seen, I think is awesome.
So at this point, sorry, Jay. At this point, like, have you done every Fit for an Autopsy record? Like, you produced every one of them?
Yeah, I've done them all. The even like to the demo, that was me. Like, oh, I just got this new record. I work at a recording studio now. Let's record my band. Like that started close to when I started recording. So the evolution of the band's records and productions has just kind of followed along with, as my studio work's gone over the years.
Yeah, because me and Jay always like go back and forth. Like, I wonder, like, if you're a producer like Will, like you being in a band like Fit for an Autopsy, is it a curse or is it a blessing to be the producer and also be in the band? Like, I always wondered that.
Yeah, it used to suck more because I used to worry about that more, I guess. I used to be like, oh, it's my band and I'm also producing it, so I'm going to get judged super hard by this thing. So I, like, earlier in life, I would sweat that a lot. And I'd be like, damn, I really got to do this the best I can in this. And I don't even know if that was a helpful thing. I mean, it probably pushed me to try hard, which is nice. But like a little while back, I realized, like, I only do the band because I enjoy it. Like, honestly, like it's a way I get my frustrations out in music, and it's a way for me to like be creative and stay fresh on guitar and have fun and try things. And, it's like, it's my creative outlet. So like, I don't actually care if people like it anymore. Like, it's funny. Like, I probably should. I'm glad people do, like, obviously it's given the band a career, and it's led to great things for me and the band. So I appreciate that people like it. But if they didn't like it as much, I probably wouldn't care anymore. Now I just do what I want, and it's like, it's my release, and I don't really put as much weight into like, what are people going to think of this? And I think once I started doing that, I just think it got better. Like, I just think things feel more natural. I feel more like free to write, and the production is just the way I want the band to sound. I'm not chasing anything, So it's like, I definitely have. I feel like it's improved that side of things, and then now it's a positive.
Right, because now you've done it enough that you're confident. So it's like I hate to quote I hate to quote Fight Club, but when you have it's only when you have nothing that you're free to do anything, and at that point you've established yourself, Will. So it's like, yeah, I really don't care what you think. I'm just going to do what I think sounds right, and then lo and behold, you're dragging an entire ginormous fan base with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky it worked out in that sense, because now at least people get to hear it. If it and I think I have the confidence in myself to make music that I don't think sucks. Because if it's like, well, if I like it, somebody else will like it, But yeah, it took a while to get there. Honestly, like it wasn't as easy, if you rewind time, it definitely didn't feel as easy to me.
So speaking of rewinding time, Will, I dove into your catalog, like all the stuff that you've touched, and everybody knows, obviously, the Fit for an Autopsy stuff, Thy Artist Murder, and Strife in the Path and all that. There is some seriously impressive shit that you touched early in your career that I didn't even know you had fingerprints on. For example, Red Harvest by Blood Simple, the VOD live DVD, the Year Spent Cold LP back in 2008, right? What was that? Moving Heaven to Hell. American Violence. I love those two Reign Supreme albums. I mean, did you know at that time that you were touching some stuff that really is going to be, I mean, for lack of a better adjective, historic?
No, probably not. a lot of the earlier stuff. I mean, the Blood Simple record was like the actual first record I ever worked on. I was super green. That was like day one of my job was day one of their record. So
wow.
Yeah, I knew nothing about what that would do, where that would go. Like I just had no idea, and I didn't do much on that record, to be honest. Like I probably tracked a little and helped and edited and stuff, but I was still like learning, and like in parallel to a lot of those records I was working on with Machine as his engineer and stuff. I would record my friends' bands like Year Spent Cold and Reign Supreme and like stuff from our local scene in New Jersey and Philly and stuff. And at the time, it was like just this panicked, I'm figuring this stuff out as I go thing. So there was no real thought or focus into like, are these going to stand the test of time, or is anyone going to like this? It was just like, damn, man, just make this good. Like, just figure it out, I think it took a year or two till like the technical side of things and sort of the workflow and process became like more refined, where then I was like, okay, I don't have to think about this stuff anymore. Now I could start thinking about like what makes albums connect, why are songs good, So I was just shooting from the hip and doing what I could quickly. It wasn't like as I didn't like get to meditate on this stuff as much early on. It was more like, I'll call it like panic recording, for lack of a better word.
Time is a great
go.
Yeah, time is a great driver, and I will give you credit, man. The Testing the Limits of the Infinite, that opening track on that album, Mother Superior, is a fucking monster of an opener. There are hardcore bands that are trying to ape that have been trying to ape that for over a decade, and most of them don't even come close.
Yeah, I mean, that record was cool because that was one of the first ones where it was like a repeat band that came in. We did the EP and it like kind of hit. And now I was like on round 2 with a band for, I think maybe the first time. That might've been the first time I was like, I actually got to do a second record with a band at that point in my life. So then I like, that was really when I felt like, cool, I'm like producing records now, because I was like reflecting on why the EP worked. I kind of was like prepared. I knew the personalities. I knew like what was going to connect, what we should try to do on this one. Like that was definitely one of the first albums in my career where I was like, all right, I get what this job is now. Like now it's feeling good, And I think that record is one of the first ones where like I did feel good about the process, and like when it was done, I was like, cool, you did this right. You didn't just like, you just like knew what you were doing when you started, not when you finished. And it was that record went great too. I think the Reign Supreme stuff is a big part of what got me off the ground, probably, especially around here, and I love those guys. I'm still playing a band with Jay now, so
that's right.
Yeah, I've like Jay's been in and out of my music career since the beginning too, so it's cool. We definitely I definitely am appreciative of that time with them and stuff.
So speaking of that, Will, let me ask you, what are some of the things that you've worked on where coming out, like as you're listening to the finished product, you're going, this is going to be enormous. Like, what are some of the stuff that you've touched that you've said as they're wrapping up and it's all mixed and mastered, you're going, this is going to be a monster of an album. I can't wait. And you were actually proven right. What is some of the stuff that you've touched that your ESP set off that you knew was going to be a monster before it was even left your hands?
I'm trying to think recently. I knew Laugh Tracks by Knock Loose was going to work. Like, I had heard those songs as demos before the record, and I was like, oh, the timing is real good for this band right now. And when I shortly after we got underway on that record, I was like, okay, this is going to do something, when that was done, I sent that off. And like, if you're an older guy at the time, you would have heard Knock Loose and be like, this is cool. I feel like this is familiar. It reminds me of like the bands I grew up listening to, but I was thinking more like the 18-year-olds that are about to receive this, like, are not actually ready for this one, you know? And like, I just knew, I was like, they're about to grab the younger generation of kids with this stuff, the way it hit us when we were younger, So I feel like I saw that one coming a little bit, I had a feeling Vane was going to do a similar thing too. When we went in to do Arizona and I heard that stuff, same kind of thing. Like, it reminded me of like the first time I heard Converge, and I was like, well, this is crazy. I don't know if I've heard stuff like this. I'm scared, but it's awesome. And there's like a talent level that exists here that like is different than other bands, and I remember finishing, like, when Arizona was done, I had that same kind of feeling where I was like, oh yeah, like, this feels like if I was a kid and heard this, like, holy shit, this would like change stuff for me, So I think that was one. Pretty much every time I do and every time I die record, because the band's just so sick, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be awesome. Like, when it's done and we can't even cut songs because they're all good, and I'm just like, yeah, this rocks. Like, you can't not like this. This will work, So those are always feel pretty good leaving, And I don't know what else. Oh, this one, the first time I heard Ice-T say "talk shit, get shot," I was like, okay, that's whatever happens after this is the song for sure. This is like how we return. Yep, this, that one stuck out to me. I was like, I have a feeling if Body Count shows back up and this is the single, things are gonna go okay.
Yeah, it's great. Well, since we talked about Knock Loose, I want to ask you about the evolution of that band. Like, when they first came in and they're super young, like, how old were they when they came in? They're probably in their early or late teens still?
They would have been around 18 or so for sure. Wow. Like, I think, they were like not able to play 21 and over shows for a minute, like, wow. they were definitely on the younger side. Yeah.
But like, from the first record you did with them till the one you just did, which is an absolute fucking banger, like, how did you expect that evolution with them? Like, them kids are super fucking talented, man. And that record, like, we had one of our friends like, yo, there's a record coming out, like, and we're like, when? Like, we didn't hear anything about it. And then it just boom. And we're like, what the fuck is this? Like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah, I knew they were going to get better for sure. Because they really do like live that music, and they're so dug into, they're such fans of different styles of extreme music and all that stuff. They're like sponges to everything. And like, obviously, like, I feel like anyone who's 18 is going to get better, one, and then like, also like, go play 2,000 shows. You're also going to get much better, So we've like, over the years, like, year by year, they're just improving and improving. And like, I know their tastes are so much more expansive than just what was in some of those early records. It was only a matter of time before they're like, now we have the confidence to do other stuff. People kind of support us. We can take some more risks. Like, it was obvious that it was just the sound was going to expand. They were going to incorporate new elements. Things were going to get cooler, smarter, weirder, more interesting. Like, so I think like that one felt really obvious. Like, okay, this band's only going up,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that band made Seven Strings like popular again. Not that they weren't popular within like deathcore and stuff, but like I feel like that band to the younger crowd made Seven and Eight Strings like people go out and just buy them because they're like, yo, this record is so good and heavy. Like, how do I get that sound? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I do a lot of 7-string music, so that one didn't dawn on me. But I guess like in hardcore, it's not as prominent for sure. You know,
Yeah.
like so I'm sure there's definitely a wave of bands that try to do what Knock Loose does. So I'm sure Ibanez has sold a nice amount of 7-strings since those records.
Absolutely.
You know,
I wonder if Steve Vai made it into his contract when he first introduced that 7-string that he'd get like perpetuity license, right? Like imagine Steve Vai still getting us like a couple bucks off every like Korn 7-string back when they did theirs. Like him sitting there looking at it, go, where is this money coming from?
Right.
I don't know, he's a pretty smart guy. There's a chance he does have some pretty cool stuff that, maybe it's possible.
If he was smart. So I know, Will, you can't talk much about this, but I feel like I have to. You introduced it. You know, you brought up the new Vane album. The new one's coming out in March. The World Is Going to Ruin You. Without going into too much detail, does this give you that same sort of chills feeling? I'm a little scared and I don't know what I'm listening to, but I like it that the first one did.
Oh, it's out of control. It's so yeah. It goes so many places that are like interesting and exciting, and like if you're into Vane, you're gonna love it. Like it's quite a ride. This new one, it was a lot of fun to make, and I don't want to spill it because I don't think they've really divulged too much about it yet, you know, but I mean, it's pretty awesome, man. I think it's definitely going to be one of the more defining records of the year in that genre for sure.
Awesome.
I already expected that. So
yeah, I think we were all kind of waiting through the pandemic. Like, okay, these guys have got to be cooking something up, right? They've got to be working on something. So let me ask you kind of the same question, Will, but under a different lens. What are some of the albums that stand out in your mind and stuff that you've worked on that you said, okay, this is fucking great. This is a hit. This is going to go places. And for whatever reason, just the fans, it didn't land. It's kind of one of those like conundrums to you where you're like, I don't get why that didn't take off, because to me, it was kind of a monster.
That's a good question. Trying to think of one that I really thought was going to go that didn't. I don't know. The only one, I think the one out of the one that I'm not disappointed in the record at all, because I think the record's awesome, but I was surprised about how it was received. I guess in hindsight, I'm not that surprised because it was a singer shift, but there's this band called Northlane from Australia that did like they were sort of very early on this like gent sound that is kind of, for lack of a better word, played out by now, where it was like super technical, low tune guitars, like drop F with like lots of ambient stuff, really cool soundscape things. And I thought, they put this record Singularity out, and it hit really good, and it created so many copycats of this band, and it was definitely a moment, especially in Australia, and in America it hit really good too. And then their singer quit, and they kind of switched gears. They've got this new guy Marcus, who's an incredible singer, but a very different style of vocal. You know, it's much more melodic, and it's not like brutal compared to what the older stuff is, but he's like an unbelievable singer. And then they kind of switched gears with their music, and they made this like brilliant record that is like, you know, if you're a fan of like some of the post-rock stuff, bands like Carnival, and like it's just like this whole art piece, and it's awesome, like start to finish. There's so much cool instrumentation and musicality on it and stuff, and the record's great, but the fan base wanted Singularity Part 2, like right off the bat. So when that record came out, people were like, oh, bring back the other guy, this is fucking different, blah blah blah. I'm just like, this is better. Like, not throwing shade at the other guy because it was just different, but I'm like, the band has gotten better, like as a whole, like, and they've created like a really interesting record that no longer sounds like anything that's out right now, and it's great. And I was like, yeah, I think they just didn't ease them in. They just gave them a twist, like they just gave them a turn, and kids didn't like it right away. Now people are like, oh, this record's great. Fucking, that's awesome. I'm like, where were you like 8 years ago? You know, like, like it didn't go bad for them. They won like an aria off it in Australia, and like the band's probably bigger than they ever were now. But it was like, it took a minute to, you know, they're like 4 records in past that now at this point. It just took a minute for them to like sort of get people on board with that style. But I just thought that record rocked right off the bat, you know. But those things happen, you know. You can never really anticipate what the fans are gonna, you know, receive. But the cool thing about it is they didn't care, like the same way I didn't care. It was like they're only gonna do what they want forever too, and it's why they've become the success that they have. Also, they just stuck with it. They're like, no, it's what we're doing. We know it's good. We're confident in it. And like over the years, the band's improved even more from them, evolved into, you know, a massively successful band. So it's like sometimes you just have to stick with what you think is going to work and what you love, and it pays off eventually.
Yeah, you got to put out stuff for yourself and not everybody else. I mean, because when you try and please everybody, then you're still going to piss everybody off at the same time. So
right. There's always those fans that would have. There's those fans that would have loved to have Hatebreed make Satisfaction every other year for 20 years, you know? And then there's fans that have liked the direction that they've taken. And you can't please everybody. You got to make it for yourself. You know, it's funny, Will, you bring up like you said, you've worked with a lot of deathcore bands, you string stuff. That gent sound is now, for lack of a better term, socially accepted, in the sense of, you look at bands like Sleep Token or Spirit Box or Loathe, bands that have a more commercial radio sensibility. When I hear that, all I hear the Genty Juns in the background, and I'm like, nah, now I get where they're going. So they're kind of bringing that sound to a mass audience.
Yeah, I think you know, over the years that fan base is just expanded, and then it's worked its way into radio, and you know, it's exposed. The bands have been exposed to new people, new festivals. Like, it was only a matter of time. Like, good songs just work. It doesn't matter what genre they're from, you know. Like, one of the biggest songs over the pandemic was like a rap and country hybrid. You know, do you ever think you were going to get that? You know,
Right.
And it's like, you know, Old Town Road is like, song was enormous, but I was like, those are two things I didn't expect to hear this in music today. You know, but it's like, if a song is like, if you write a good song, people are going to gravitate towards it. So it's like, you know, it's only a matter of time, like, before any genres just cross and wind up working their way up to the surface like that.
Definitely. So I want to ask you one more production thing, and then we'll get into Fit for an Autopsy, because I want to talk about the new record. But I was always wondering, and when I knew we were getting you on, I was like, oh, perfect time to ask him this. So with the 3 guitar players in the band, so usually if you have 2, like if I do any type of demo, I would just do, you know, right, left, pan, you know, all that stuff. But with the 3, do you record all 3 of the guitar players and just pan it right, left? Like, you don't have to give your secret out, but how does that work with 3 guitar players?
Well, honestly, like a lot of the Fit stuff I write, I don't write it like it requires 3 guitar players, because I know that more than likely I'm not going to be on stage with them, you know. And it's like, we like to try to keep it in the realm of things that we could execute live, you know.
Okay.
Like, none of the music that I feel like we do with Fit can't be performed correctly, or a version of it that feels good, you know. And like, the more you go deeper into like 3 rhythm guitars and this and that, it's like the more like further away we drift from being able to pull that off in a live scenario. So
Gotcha.
like, inherently it's more like a traditional band. You know, I'm writing it more like I want this to be able to translate the right way. And if there's third guitar things or little ear candy things or bells and whistles, none of that stuff is ever really like to the forefront where it's like, oh, how we're gonna do this, you know. So I'm conscious enough of that. It's not even something I really think about anymore. It's just like a no-go zone, because it's like, you know, at its core, the band needs to be able to kill this stuff live all the time.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, I never try to pull the music in a place where it can't be done like that.
Gotcha. That's kind of what I figured too. Like it wasn't like, oh, we have to have everybody playing the same thing and we're just gonna split it. Like it makes sense what you're saying. So.
No, I mean there's a million guitars on the record. Like production wise, there's layers and there's other stuff, and like I'm definitely like sound designing, and if that takes more guitar takes or parts, like that's just the fun of production. But it's still what you're getting back is like, okay, here's this band. When you hear it live, it's like, yeah, that's what you're getting. That's what you hear, you know?
Okay.
I have one more producer question for you, Will. So a lot of our audience are younger guys and younger gals who are in their way and becoming musicians and to record their own stuff. Looking back, experiences both as a musician and as a producer, if you had to offer them a handful of hints or tips to get ready to go into a studio or keep this in the front of your mind while you're in there, what would you tell like the younger Will Putney, let's just say?
As a musician to get ready to go into the studio,
yeah,
I would say, okay, you really have to know what you want, and you really have to know what you're doing. You know, it sounds stupid, but it's like, what are you trying to do with your band? You know, like, what's the goal? Are you trying to write music to be successful? Or is there a certain sound that you're going for? Like committing to a vision and knowing who you are and like having an identity is probably like step one. Like, what is this? You know, like define what it is that you're doing and know what and get the goal in mind. So you're not just lost through the process and you're unsure, and it adds a lot of doubt to the process where it's like that slows you down, that like gets things off track, that creates mistakes, like takes songs in the wrong turns. Like it's like if everybody knows what the common goal is, what we're trying to do with the music, what we're trying to do with these songs, like it definitely will focus recording. It definitely will like get you to the thing you want faster. I think that's a huge part of it. Like when bands don't have an identity or they're not really sure about what they should do or sound like, it's like, those aren't really the records that ever go big, you know? So it's like that takes a while sometimes it takes a while to figure out. And maybe you do have to make a record or two before you're like, I'm this is what I want to do now. This is my band. Like, okay, this is what works. This is the thing that makes me happy, you know? And that would be a big one, you know? And then two, like, be prepared. Jesus Christ. I still have to be like, you're going to record. What do you need? You need a guitar that works. You need cables that work. You need strings that work. You got picks, you got drumsticks, you got drum heads, you got all your stuff. Okay, good. Put it in the van. Like, okay, what else? Can you play all your songs? Do you know what fret the riff is on? Like, do you know the fill? Like the guy who wrote it in the computer, did he show the other guys the parts? So like they're ready too. Like, know what you're doing. Like you're here to work, not to learn what your songs are, you know? Like it's a thing from the smallest band to the biggest band I work with. There's always some point where somebody doesn't know what the hell they're supposed to be doing, you know? And it's like, that could be a time vacuum. And it's like, do you want to waste time like learning the thing you could have done at home, or do you want to like get to work, you know? So it's like those two things, you know, I'd say are probably what I feel like that one in particular is definitely, if you want to be more efficient in a studio, like have your shit together when you show up for, you know, I don't even know how else to say it.
Do you happen to know Len Carmichael?
Yeah, I've known Len for decades.
Yeah, I figured you did. I remember when my old band recorded with him the first time, he was like, the first thing he said was, do not come to my studio with a guitar that's not tuned, new strings, and set up. And I was like, already done, bro.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to deal with your bullshit. I don't know how to say. Yeah.
No, you're exactly right, man. I was going to say that honestly, too. Like,
it's reflective on us. Like if you have a broken instrument or a thing that doesn't work right, it's like we got it. Now it's on me to fix that thing, make it work, make a guitar that stays in tune. Like not because if I don't do it, and obviously you didn't do it, like now we've got, you know, a guitar that's out of tune and has problems and stuff. And it's like at the end of the day, when there's something that's like sour on a record sonically, they're not going to blame the band. They're going to blame the guy. Well, this sounds weird. Who made this? Like, so it's like, I don't want that I don't like, I have to clean up other people's messes, you know, and it's like, I don't want to do that. You know, it's because it's reflective of my work. So yeah, I mean, hard stance is pretty cool. Good for Len for that.
Absolutely. No, it's funny. Like, I'm laughing because I can hear the frustration in your voice. Like,
Oh,
I hate
man.
that shit. It's great, man.
It's
I love that
years-
you're passionate about it, though, because it's like, yeah, because I could just imagine like people coming in. You're like, oh, come on again with this. Like, you didn't even put new strings on your fucking guitar.
I can't imagine Will sitting behind a console, right? Like, because he's absolutely right. When you get an album and it sounds janky, you don't blame the band. Your first thought is, who produced this goddamn thing? Helen
Absolutely.
Keller? Like, who was behind the board here? And
Yeah.
You're right. With the first person we look at is the adult, for lack of a better term, the producer is the adult in the room to say, all right, didn't they raise their hand and be like, yo, guys, this is terribly out of tune and it sounds just heinous, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I literally have like mountains of gear here because I've taken the responsibility away from artists. Now I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get a bunch of guitars and amps and drum sets and things that work and sound good. So if somebody else blows it, we're good. The record, the ship keeps going, and the things sound the way I need them to sound, you know? And it's like, why do you have all these guitars? It's like, because sometimes you really need them, man. You know?
Definitely. So I want to get into Fit for an Autopsy, and I will say this, man, like back when like the Process of was coming out and Hellbound, right?
Yep.
I'm trying to think of these off of the top, man, because I left my notes at work like an asshole. So
That's awesome.
so I'll like around that time, like the Process of and Hellband, like I was just not into deathcore anymore. I thought it was super stale, and I was just like, whatever. I was just listening to black metal shit like that. But like, I remember I got my hands on Absolute Hell, and I was fucking blown away by that record. And I just want to say that record like made me love deathcore again. Amazing record, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's funny, like we were never like supposed to be a deathcore band. It just like, I guess we just fell in line with like some of the other bands that had music at the time. It was where we got lumped in. But like the first record, like it's just like hardcore. I guess that's what deathcore is. But it was like in our heads, the music we were listening to and what we were writing was just a reflection of the stuff we liked, you know?
Yeah.
Like I was taking cues more from older death metal stuff and like Jersey bands and Crazy People music, and I had never, I didn't even like any deathcore bands. Like it wasn't really like a thing, you know. And it was like, oh yeah, you guys are like a deathcore band. I'm like, I guess, man. Like I don't know if we've ever really like purposely tried to do stuff in that genre. It's just where we wound up, because it's like, well, who can we tour with? Like what label are we supposed to be on? Like who, you know, like how do we got to connect with people that are like in our world, the same size around us and stuff. And there was, you know, we were never the band that really made a ton of sense on the hardcore shows. And we were never the band that was like, you know, like a purist metal thing. So we just fell in between the worlds in that sense. But yeah, it's funny, like we're constantly described as like, oh, they're like the deathcore band that like just, but they do like other stuff. Like it's not just that, they do like other things. I'm like, yeah, we're just like an aggressive band. Like,
Yeah,
you know, I like, it's like a thought-provoking, angry music with like, you know, some messages behind it. And it's always been this like between the worlds thing for us, which used to be weird because it was hard to, you know, we didn't fit into a box, but now it's like probably an advantage where I feel like we have more opportunities and we get to tour with more bands and we kind of get to flex different muscles with our music, because we didn't just like stay in this lane that scene has, you know.
yeah,
Right. It gives you more opportunity, like you said, to change your sound, to go on different tours, because you're not so buried in one particular subgenre.
Yeah. And I think like, I mean, there's honestly, and today I think there are a lot of awesome new deathcore bands, because now there was a while there where I was like, man, I can't listen to any of this stuff. Like, I don't get it at all. But it's like, it's taking turns now too that are cool. And there's new younger bands that are doing new things, and now I hear stuff and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. Like, it's different. Thank you. I think it was just the repetition of the genre that like we were slowly burnt out on. Where I'm
Absolutely.
like, dude, there's 30 of these bands where you could just switch the logo and it's like it's literally the same thing. And I was just, if you like it, awesome. You like it, like if you like it, there's so much of it that's very similar. So it's like really easy to just fall in there and have a million bands you can listen to. But we never loved it. Like there's a couple bands that are awesome, but like I said, we were never like, this wasn't like a scene we ever were like really a part of, and we didn't like, we didn't do a lot of deathcore touring in earlier on or anything either. We were just, obviously we were like taking whatever tours we can get and stuff, but like we were always like trying to do the other tours, and it took years before we were like, oh cool, we could do like a Crowbar tour now, or we can go out with like more sort of like traditional metal stuff, bands like Trivium or like Unearth, or like stuff that's like, this feels more like a proper metal band. And then doing like Hatebreed and Obituary tours and things like that, where we're like, this is the stuff where we like.
Yeah. I remember seeing the band on the Exalt and Unearth tour, and I just remember that the band sounded amazing at that tour. And then of course every other time I've seen them, they're just the dudes in the band, other than you, what I'm trying to say is they definitely stick to the formula, and they're super tight live. And I think that's why there's so much success with the band now. It's because you go see them live, they fucking bring it, and they're energetic. And you don't see many bands like that anymore, because like we were saying before, like we don't need 30 more Chelsea Grins. You know what I mean? Nothing against them, but we don't need 30 more of them. Like, as you guys progress, the music gets more out of deathcore, in my opinion. Like the new singles I heard, I was like, dude, every time you guys put a record out, I'm like, they just get fucking better and better. Like, I didn't think you guys would top Absolute. And then when, see, I wish I had my notes here because I'm an asshole. When the Great Collapse comes out, I'm just like, that opening track, I'm like, yep, I already know this record's going to, be better than that. And it just gets better and better as you go. So huge props to you guys, man, for keeping it, original and new.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I mean, honestly, like, we're not the most original band in the world. Like, I'm taking cues from all the stuff I like too. We're just like, we pull from influences that are just varied, and I think that's what keeps things interesting for what we do. And I think, I don't know if bands like don't put that sort of mentality on, or are afraid to like jump out of it a little bit, but like, to me, it's the fun part, like, especially when you're writing music, it's like, I don't want to write the same song over and over again. Like, it's so boring to me to do that now, where it's like, what else can we do? What else can we try? And like, there's a whole session of songs that were just like failures on this one, where I'm like, all right, this isn't our lane. Like, we're not pulling this off the way I want it to be. I feel like it could be done, so it's like, you got to be comfortable enough with your like self to be like, all right, we're not very good at that. That's fine. Let's try something else, but it's like, that, like I said, that's like the great part about being a musician and writing music. It's like challenging yourself to do things not just repeating yourself, improving, like expanding what you're capable of. I don't know. It's just the thing I'm the most interested in. And I think like, because Fit is so down for that too, and is serious enough about like, we're just going to do what we want. We're going to try what we want. And, it's translated to being able to connect with people where they're like, I like that I don't always know what I'm getting. I like that it's something different,
Yeah. I remember when Far From Heaven came out, I guess I must have been in like a shitty mood or something, because I remember listening to it, and I text Jay and I'm like, I think this is a song I don't like. And I'm just like, I got to go back and listen to this. And I remember getting into a better mood and putting it on. And then Pandora comes out, and I'm just like, nah, I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. This shit is ridiculous.
Yep. I remember.
Yep. I mean, they're two pretty different songs. So like, if you didn't love both, I would get that for sure. It's like, one is like groovy and slow and stompy and like a different style, like more lyric forward and sort of more like big and dumb riff kind of thing. Like always wanted to try a song like that. And then it takes like some pretty strange turns. So I get it. It's definitely not like if you're a fan of our band and that's all and that's what you get, it's not always going to be like, whoa, I'm knocking my ass. But it's like the record's so varied. Like picking singles was crazy because we're like, what do we do? Like, what are people gonna like this version or this version? And I was like, I don't care, just pick the ones we like, you know. But yeah, I mean, there's something for everyone on this new album. Like whatever era of the band you like or whatever style of aggressive music you like. Like I feel like I do feel like I did a pretty cool job of like sort of putting all the pieces in that collectively like represent what we dig and what we're into and all of our influences from, you know, aggressive music over our lifetimes. You know, it's definitely got that collage feel in a cool way, you know. So a track to track on this album, like, yeah, you're gonna feel different for sure, you know. So, but like you said, like if you dug Pandora, there's more of that for you too, you know. And if you like, if you like Far From Heaven, like there's some more of that too. So it's like it's cool, you know.
Yeah, I heard the record. It's excellent. People are gonna love it. Yeah.
I want to switch gears just a little bit, Will, because I know we're quickly approaching time on that monster of an End album you guys did. I mean, holy shit, right? So Splinters from an Ever-Changing Face. I one of my favorite albums that came out that year. I know you guys are coming up on tour and you're touring with, I think it's Portray of Guilt, it's Yashira, it's Wake. And you are actually touring with them, right? Like you're gonna dust off your road shoes and go back out on the road with them, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. It's fun. I'm looking forward to it. You know, I think I mean, End is just me getting that style out of my system. Cause like over the years, Fit's evolved into this thing that is definitely a little more grounded as like a metal band, and where the music of Fit goes now, like that was part of what I was saying before. Like I'll try things and I don't feel like they'll work anymore in Fit. Like the chaotic hardcore stuff that like was sort of a little more present on our earlier records, like as these songs got like more thematic and moody and expansive, and like that stuff started to feel more out of place. And over the years it's sort of like worked its way out of the Fit for an Autopsy catalog, you know. And I love that stuff. That's like my favorite stuff, like Power Violence records and D-Beat stuff and grind and like super aggressive hardcore is still probably like my genre of choice if I'm going for aggressive music, you know. And I was like, okay, now here I am with a band that doesn't do any of the stuff that's actually kind of like my favorite stuff to listen to. I love the Fit music. Like it's not, they're just different animals to me. And I was like, okay, now I want to get this out of my system, you know? So I mean, End is like purely a passion project. And all the guys that are a part of the band are people that are, you know, dudes that were my friends or people I've worked with before, where I'm like, I know they love this stuff too. So if we can like all get together on this, like everyone's going to be so excited to do it. And it kind of worked and translated like that, where it was like, yeah, there's like it's literally just a bunch of guys playing their favorite music, you know. And I think that's like helped put like good, strong intention into those songs. And now, because it is part-time and we're not like on tour 10 months out of the year, I'm like, dude, I want to go play shows with this. It's fun, you know. No, it's just less pressure than like the scale of Fit touring. It's more intimate venues, and it's like it's more of a vacation in a sense, where Fit is more of like, this is like pros and this
Work.
is their,
yeah.
And if I stepped in on that stage and threw a wrench into that, I wouldn't make it better, you know. So it's like, I feel like now I've got this thing that I'm just going to do purely for fun. And I think we're all looking forward to touring on it. It's going to be a blast. Like we never got to play a lot of that material live. We put the record out in the pandemic and it's just been sitting for 2 years. So we're like real fired up about playing this stuff.
I as a personal request for some random fat podcast host in Jersey, the same night you guys are playing your Jersey date, on the other side of town is, I think it's Boundaries, Vatican, Sentinels, and 156 Silence. And I just want to find the promoters and just beg them like, look, combine both these shows and do one monster discordant hardcore show.
I mean, that would be
Please.
cool. I think I'll go email my agent because I didn't realize that would actually be nice to do if everyone's down. I'm down. That would be great.
Because
everyone would have a better show.
I'm carpooling with a buddy of ours, a buddy of Tim and mine's, Will, and literally we're gonna find somewhere where we can park in between the two venues. We're gonna Uber it to the venue, and whoever gets out of the show first, you're kind of screwed until the second guy gets out. But it's just two amazing lineups in the same city. That would be great to combine it.
Yeah, well, I'll shoot an email when we get off this podcast for sure.
Oh,
that's great.
Awesome. Well, I know we're quickly approaching time, but we don't want to take too much more of yours. But I do want to give you a chance. If people want to find you, like they want to find more information about the studio, maybe they're going to take your advice and show up prepared. Where do they go? Where do they go looking for you?
I'm all over normal people's social media under Will Putney. GraphicNatureAudio.com is like a little studio page. Probably should update it. It's been a minute. I don't do the internet thing as much as I probably should. I don't know. Maybe I don't need to, but you could always reach me personally. I'm not like a unapproachable person. So if you want to chat about recording or music or whatever, just go follow me and hit me up.
Awesome. Awesome. So on behalf of Tim and myself, I really want to thank Will for taking his time out to chat with us. We could have gone on for another hour. We didn't even get to talk about is it Taylor ham or pork roll or all these kind of grubby New Jersey conversations. But I do want to, on behalf of Tim, myself, Will, we want to thank you for coming on. Excuse me, Rona leftovers. And on behalf of Tim, Will, and myself, we want to thank all of you listeners. Find us at New Breed _podcast at Twitter and Instagram, New Breed Podcast on Facebook. No, we're not the UK country western rappers, so keep that in mind. And so once again, want to thank all of you watchers and listeners. Until next time, this is New Breed saying cheers.
Cool. Thanks for having me, guys. Much